Hi, Madam Saleha and my dear friends. My name is Divya, and my group members Priya, Vijaya, and Aziz Fatima from Group 9 would like to present about our selected topic, which is about elections in Malaysia. So, let's start with the introduction. Malaysia practices parliamentary democracy with constitutional monarchy and His Majesty the King as the paramount ruler. The federal constitution was legislated with the setting up of conditions for this system to exist. One of the characteristics of parliament democracy is the separation of powers into three parts, which are the legislative, the judiciary, and the executive. Malaysia is also a country that practices a system of democracy based on the federation system. In accordance to the states of Perlis, Kedah, Penang, Perak, Selangor, Negeri Sembilan, Malacca, Johor, Pahang, Terengganu, Kelantan, Sarawak, and Sabah have agreed to the concept of forming Malaysia. Each state involved has surrendered part of its powers such as financial, defense, education, foreign affairs, and others, as stated in the Malaysian constitution, which administered by the central government. There are matters that are under the power of the state, and each state administers the power over those matters. Elections in Malaysia include elections to public office of the political entities that since 1963 have comprised the Federation of Malaysia. At present, elections in Malaysia exist at two levels, which are federal level and state level. Federal level elections are those for membership in the Dewan Rakyat, the lower house of parliament, while the state level elections are for membership in the various state legislative assemblies. The heads of executive branch at both the federal level and state levels is the Prime Minister and Menteri Besar or the Chief Minister, respectively, indirectly elected, and they usually filled by a member of the majority party or coalition in the respective legislatures. While any state may dissolve its assembly independently of the federal parliament, traditional practices is for most state assemblies to be dissolved at the same time as parliament, with the exception of Sabah and Sarawak. But although these two states had held elections simultaneously with the rest of the state, as it is the case for Sabah in election post-1999 and Sarawak in the 1969 and 1974 elections.
At the federal level, the voters elect the 222-member House of Representatives. In Malay, we call Dewan Rakyat, meaning that all of the people of the Bipedal Parliament elected by people. So the member are elected from single-member constitutions is depending on population by using the first past the post system. So the party that has the majority of the House of Representatives will form the federal government. On the other hand, the general election must be held in at least once in 5 years. However, the Prime Minister can ask the young people to go to dissolve the parliament at any time during the 5 years of period. So the dissolutions of parliament, so the general election shall be held within 2 months in West Malaysia and within 3 months in East Malaysia, which is Sabah and Sarawak. Moving on to the state level elections. So at the state level election, voters elect representative to the Dewan Undangan Negeri, which is state legislative assembly. So the member of our representative varies by state, with Sarawak having as many as 82 electors and Perlis having as little as 15 electors. So the same goes to the state level election. The members are chosen by choosing the first past post system from the single member constitution based on population. So the state assembly, the state government will be get and will be formed by the party with the most seats in the state assembly. However, the state election in 11 states on Peninsular Malaysia were held simultaneously with the parliamentary election in 1999, although the state election in Sabah and Sarawak were held on separate dates. Besides federal and state level election, there are other election occurs in Malaysia, which are local government elections. Although there used to be election for members of local governments such as municipal councils today, but no local government election are held in Malaysia. So the local government election was suspended after the Indonesian-Malaysian confrontation in 1964. So the suspensions were never lifted and instead being permanent act under the Local Government Act, which is 1976. So under the act or the law of individual states, where relevant local government members are appointed by the state government. Lastly, by-election. In addition to general election, a by-election occurs when a particular seat in the Dewan Rakyat becomes vacant. Such as vacancy can occur when a member of parliament (MP) dies and an MP is disqualified from being a member of the Dewan Rakyat, which is that seat is declared vacant because of the MP has been absent from every sitting of the Dewan Rakyat for a period of 6 months without leave of the Dewan Rakyat. So the members of the member of the Dewan Rakyat have decided to declare the seat vacant. So the exceptions is if the vacancy occur when the tenure for the current parliament or state assembly is less than 2 years. So at least where the seat is simply left until the next general election. Eligibility to vote in elections in Malaysia. So an eligibility is something that a voter must consider before they vote. So under Article 119 Federal Constitution, first of all, the voter must be a Malaysian citizen, be 18 years and all and above, and living in the constituency where wish to vote. And lastly, they register as voter to vote. So however, a person is disqualified from being a voter if the person is of unsound mind or live serving a prison sentence or has been convicted or sentenced to death or to a jail term of more than 12 months period to the qualification date, and they are still liable on the qualification date. So in this article, the qualification date means by reference to which the electoral rolls are prepared and revised. The implementations of Undi 18 that all Malaysians over the age of 18, even those who living abroad, would be automatically listed as voter by December 31st, 2021, according to Deputy Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Dato' Mas Imayati Ishamuddin. So this is in response to a judgment by the Kuching High Court, which set a deadline for the Elections Commission to implement automatic voter registrations and lowering the voting age from 21st to 18 years old. However, this judgment comes after the Kuching High Court that ordered the federal government to implement to make the amendment that would enforce the Undi 18 aim by the end of 2021. In 2019, the amendment Article 9119(1)(a) of the Federal Constitutions to allow for 18 years old to cast their votes during elections was signed by nation's monarch King Sultan Abdullah Shah Ahmad Shah on September 4, 2019, and it's officially gazetted on September 10, 2021. As we can see the change of voting age, and now we can see the all eligible Malaysians over the age of 18 should now be automatically enrolled in voting system, and as a result of reforms.
Election candidate can be Malaysian citizen, can register as candidate as long as he is not disqualified, and he also need to age 21 years old and above. He must fill in the relevant form and pay a financial deposit. The deposit is 5,000 for candidature of parliamentary seat and 3,000 for the candidature of state seat. In 2004, the amount was changed to 10,000 for candidature of parliamentary seat and 5,000 for the candidature of state seat. In addition, 2004, each candidate had to pay 5,000 of deposit to the government to cleaning the banners and posters after the election. This amount is increasing by some as having led to the government winning record number of seats without contest in 2004. 17 parliamentary seats were won without contest. Okay, now I'm going to summarize about the process of election in Malaysia. Elections are supervised by a 7-member of Election Commission. Members are appointed by Yang di-Pertuan Agong following advice by Prime Minister. The election process starts with nomination of candidates. Nomination centers are set up by the Election Commission at various locations where candidate can register. Follows that, next is campaigning. The campaign period by law runs from the date of nomination day until polling day. On the election day, registered voters may vote for their candidate at designed polling places, which were as public places like schools, community areas, etc. On the election day, political parties provide transportations for vote to and from the polling places to get maximum votes from the voters. Campaigning and advertising for candidates are not allowed. Only registered voters can vote in election. Every Malaysian citizen aged 21 years and must above register on the electoral roll at Election Commission at an office attached to the Election Commission or an post office with computerized facilities. After the polling station closed, polling officially check the ballot boxes for counting. The count is monitored to ensure the vote matches. After the count is completed at polling areas, it will be taken to the counting center for the second vote. Second count. If all candidates agree with the second counting or calculation, the result will be broadcast live by the radio and television.
Hi, this is Fatima. So we have talked about democracy in Malaysia, elections in Malaysia, and the voters, candidates, and requirement. Basically, everything that is related to elections. So now the question remains: why elections are even happening? Elections started originally in 17th century, and however, Malaysia started officially in 1963. The Federation of Malaysia, where each state have their own election except for the Sabah and Sarawak. And then in 1973, they have declared that all 21 years old and above have to take part in this electoral elections combination. So coming back to the question, why elections are even happening is pretty obvious. It's for the country, it's for the people, it's for the growth of the country. However, it's changeable because if the people doesn't like the rules or system, they don't have to suffer for the longest time. And that's exactly why public decides who they want as a political parties. Talking about not having election is a still big discussion for most of the countries, and because some people think that it's going to be a better place because it's going to be lesser for the black money, misuse of the funds, the growth will be faster. However, other groups think that it's going to be a total disaster because there are no one to rule the country or lead the people. However, in the end, election is still needed and is going to be there for many more years. This is all from us. Thank you very much.